I could sense something like brewing on the horizon. I know that sounds quite dramatic, but I could sense something nebulous about to happen. And I think that's why, part of the reason I went to get a mental health care plan was because I was rereading some of the stuff that I'd written.
Right.
And I always get complimented on like how energetic and vivacious and fun I am. And the stuff I'd written was actually really fucking dark.
Turia Pitt, welcome to No Filter.
Thank you for having me.
It's a great medium for you because you are quite unfiltered in your expression of yourself.
Yes. Well, I don't know if that's a compliment, but I'm gonna see it as one, Kate. Thank you.
Well, obviously on this podcast, it's the ultimate compliment. But in life, it's a rare commodity, really, increasingly rare. I mean, you've always been very open with how you've brought yourself to the public. But this is really, if you ever want to make the people that you live with nervous, your husband, your children, I suggest that you pull out this book, your new book, which is called Selfish. Selfish. My husband's like, why are you reading that? It makes them nervous.
Yeah, you know what? There was a bit of tension inside myself with how, because, there's stories in there about Michael. There's less stories about my kids, but there are still some stories in there. So for me, whilst personally I am a public person, I share my story, I post on social media, I do podcasts, I write, I create content, I do advocacy work. So I'm a public person, but I also need to remember that my family aren't public, if that makes sense. Like my husband, well, he's not my husband. Michael isn't an influencer. My kids aren't in my content. So there was a little bit of tension within myself, I suppose, about that tightrope that I had to walk.
Yes, because in the book you delve very deeply into, I think, the inherent tension that a lot of women in particular feel in their lives now, which is how you serve yourself and how you serve those around you who you love. And in fact, even though you said you don't talk about your boys too much, Hakavai, your eldest son, provided the launching pad.
He did.
For this discovery.
He did.
Over the hot chocolate.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was one of those nights which, I'm sure so many people can relate to, but especially if your both parents come home after a big day at work, you're both absolutely shattered. But the kids are, everyone's hungry. You haven't started making dinner. So, I start getting the stuff out of the fridge, start cooking dinner, and I look over at my husband. Sorry, at
your not
boyfriend.
Husband.
at my spunky man, and he's sitting on the couch. And I have this thought, and it's probably reflective of my headspace at the time, but I think, oh, that'd be nice. That'd be nice to be able to sit down on the couch and decompress after my day. But no, I've got to cook dinner. So I cook the dinner. Everyone sits down at the table. We eat the dinner. We start clearing up. And then my eldest son, Hakavai, he was only 4 years old at the time. He says that he wants a hot chocolate. So I say, yeah, no worries, mate. So I start getting out the hot chocolate materials, and he looks at the brand of the hot chocolate that I've bought, and he goes, that's the wrong one. And because by this time I'm so stressed, tense, overwhelmed, cranky, and snarky, I retort back to him, well, why don't you ask your dad to buy you the brand of hot chocolate that you like? And quick as a flash, he comes back to me and he says, no, that's your job. And I had always considered Michael and I to have an equal relationship. I considered myself to be a feminist. I thought we were doing a pretty good job at raising our boys, but yet somehow my 4-year-old son had identified that it was mum's job to remember the brand of hot chocolate that he liked. And so that night, I was in a bit of a spiral because I felt like no matter how diligent I was, no matter how hard I tried, no matter if I got up earlier in the morning and meditated, no matter if I set my day up with intentions, no matter if I, planned out my day meticulously, something would always fall through the cracks. And I didn't really like who I was at the time because I was often stressed and shitty and annoyed and overwhelmed and overworked. And I feel so lucky, Kate. Like I got a second chance at life, right? But I wasn't enjoying it because I was always shitty and annoyed. And I wanted to enjoy my life my second chance that I get to have with my spunky man and my beautiful kids. And I wanted to be more playful and more energetic and more uplifted and more joyful. And so that was, I suppose, the catalyst for this book.
And so when that moment, sometimes you only recognise things in retrospect. Like, did that moment hit you in the moment, even with all the, attendant kerfuffle of trying to make dinner and exhaustion or whatever? Did it hit you at the moment, or was it later on upon reflection that you went, hang on a minute?
Yeah, it was when everyone was in bed and I sat down at the kitchen table and I remember feeling really sad. Really sad, and I was drinking wine at the time, and I just started like tapping out my thoughts and my feelings and how I felt at the time. This tension in my life. I was running around like a headless chicken, like trying to do everything for everyone else, spending my whole day being a good boss, being a good person, being polite, not rocking the boat, being a good friend, not forgetting birthdays, checking in with my in-laws. So I felt like I was doing everything that I felt like I was supposed to. But then if I didn't do one little thing, then all of the things that I did do weren't noticed or weren't appreciated.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the exceptions to what you've done are the things that get picked up on, rather than the million things you have done. So even with like Hakavai, he noticed that you didn't get the right type of hot chocolate. But of course, through a child's eyes, they're not noticing that you've just picked them up and dropped them off and that you're making dinner and you're whatever.
Yeah. And like it's not a child's job to, especially not a 4-year-old, to be like, oh, you've done, you've worked all day and, you've got to give yourself a break and you've cooked dinner. Like that's what my girlfriends are for, I suppose. That's what girlfriends are for, to give you that little pep talk. And also that's what my man's for too. So it's not a child's job. But I suppose when I embarked on this selfish journey, I realized that I had to stop, I suppose, waiting for someone to notice, waiting for someone to praise, waiting for someone to say, hey, you've worked really hard today, you need a break.
Yes.
And I had to carve that out for myself.
You say in the book, and I think this will resonate with so many people, I've tried to be selfless, to put other people's needs ahead of my own, and I think in many ways it's been catastrophic for me personally. That's extraordinary.
Yeah, because I became burned out. I was really burned out, and that because I didn't get help, didn't get the mental health support that I needed, didn't get support, I ended up being really depressed. So that's why it was catastrophic, because up until then I felt like I'd been doing everything right. I'd been a good partner, a good mum, a good friend, a good daughter, checking in on others, making sure everyone else was comfortable. And if something made me uncomfortable, or if I didn't want to do something, I would just absorb that. I would just expect myself to be able to resolve that internally, or I would expect myself to not make a big deal. Don't be a drama queen. Don't be a diva. Be easygoing.
So what sort of things, Turia? What sort of – give me an example of –
Yeah, I'll give you an example. So lots of people recognise me and they'll say, oh, my gosh, Turia, I love your work. You're awesome. And I'll say, thank you. That's really lovely. I genuinely love it when people say that to me. But on the other side of the equation, I also get people come up to me and they say, oh my gosh, what happened to you? Oh my gosh, were you burnt?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, that's such a crazy story. And what I would do is I would placate them. So I would answer the questions, and I wouldn't want them to feel bad. So I do all of this extra work to try and make them feel comfortable for asking what is probably I wouldn't be proud if my boys went up to a stranger and asked those types of questions. But I suppose when I started to notice that, I was at the park with my son, and a woman came over to me and started asking me a lot of those questions, and I could feel my son squeezing my hand and trying to pull me away and saying, Mummy, can we go? Can we go? And so I suppose it's strange because I've written this book about being selfish, and I'm encouraging other women to be selfish and to stop waiting for permission from other people. But at the same time, I'm still not very good at being selfish, even though I've written this whole bloody book on it. But it was easier for me to set boundaries and to do things when it was for my kids, if that makes sense.
Often I think we'll advocate on behalf of others.
Yeah.
We'll draw a line in the sand on behalf of others that we won't do for ourselves.
Yeah. And that's why I thought about the example I was setting for my kids. I was teaching them that if a stranger asked them a question that they weren't comfortable with, they had to answer it. And not only that, they had to be polite about it. And not only that, they had to make the stranger feel good.
Feel okay.
About asking this. So now if someone says that to me, I just say, I don't want to talk about it, which feels so rude. And it feels like I'm being a really big bitch. But at the same time, I notice that I feel proud of myself too for drawing that boundary.
It's an interesting when you are in public, as other people are who have had burns or who have had some kind of physical trauma happen to them that they wear, that they can't hide from the world. Like, as we all know, the world's all crawling around full of internal trauma, but that can't be seen from the outside. There's something about when you have the face that you present to the world has a story to it, that people feel that they can intrude upon that. And in your book, in your quest for selfishness, you go on it is a real quest. So you examine so many aspects of your life, your relationship with alcohol, your relationship with your phone, the division of household chores with Michael. And one of the things that you talk about, which was really interesting, was, I think it came out of your therapy maybe, that every time you have to share your trauma with a stranger, you end up reliving that trauma yourself.
Yeah, which I'd read about microaggressions a couple of years ago, which is something that I think it was first brought to my attention by Carly Finley, who's
yes, I love Carly.
She's awesome. She's an advocate. She's fucking amazing. So it was first brought to my attention, and when I first read about it, I got to say I didn't quite understand. Because at the time I was like, well, it's just a question. It's not, the person didn't mean it. It's just a question. How bad can it be? But what I realized now is because I've lived with burns for like close to 15 years, the reason they're called microaggressions is because they have this cumulative effect. And you're right, every time someone, I might be going for a surf and I'll be frothing. I'll be like, can't wait to get out there. And someone will say, hey, what happened to you? And then even though I was keen and excited to go for a surf, now mentally I'm brought back to the the trauma that I've survived. And so it can be quite jarring. But it's also not like I can't expect every single person to not ask me those types of questions.
No.
Right? Like obviously that's going to be ideal. It's not going to fucking happen. But what I can do is I can realize that people can ask that question and I can also just shut it down and just say, I don't want to talk about it.
You must get told all the time that you're an inspiration. Is that a blessing or a curse? Does it confine you to feel that you have to live in a certain way? How do you feel about inspiration?
When people say that they admire me, they respect the work I've done, that they find me inspiring, that's really like lovely and amazing. And I like to hear it. If I'm feeling down or I'm having a shit day, I can feel like a bit of a fraud because
yes.
This person thinks I'm inspiring, but I feel like my day has just been a shit show. So I don't feel inspiring at the time. I think when people say, like if I'm at the shops and I'm getting like minced meat for my spag bowl that I'm cooking my boys and someone says, oh, you're so brave. I just couldn't leave the house if what happened to you happened to me. I find that kind of applause really off because I feel like I'm being commended for doing a really ordinary basic task that most people would do and not really think about. So I don't like those circumstances, but I think I'm normally getting called inspiring or brave, I suppose, for the work that I've done or the things that I've done. And I think if I look at it objectively, then yes, I am brave and I am inspiring. So I'm okay with it.
In your quest, and I just also want to say that the territory that you're charting in the book is very interesting because it's certainly not a treatise on, burning down the village and leaving everyone to fend for themselves. You're not advocating that at all. But you know what I mean? That is the association that we have with the notion of selfishness. But what you're talking about is serving yourself.
Yeah, looking after your well-being, making sure that you're doing okay. And, sometimes, we don't live near any family members and Michael will go away for work. And so I'll be solo parenting for 2 weeks. And in the morning, sometimes I can feel myself start to get stressed, start to get overwhelmed because I think about all the work that I have to do. I've got to get the kids ready for school, do their lunches, all of those things. And now instead of being really hard on myself, I say, well, what's going to make this day a bit easier, Turia? And sometimes the answer is, hey, I'm not going to take my kids to after school sports today. Or we're just going to get pizza tonight. And sometimes that doesn't feel good, particularly when you are if you're like me and you're an overachiever and you like to do things properly and you like to excel, stripping back, taking your foot off the pedal, giving yourself that permission to not take your kids to their after school sports or not cook a home cooked meal, that doesn't feel good, right? But I also know that that's what I need to do to look after myself in that moment.
When you have made a decision like that, often I think we anticipate that the response of the world around us will be judgmental or horrified or disappointed or whatever.
Yes. And this is what I realised last year. I got really badly burnt out. I had so many people offer me help when Michael was away working. I said, no, I'm good. I've got it. I suppose I had this idea in my head that I'd beaten the fire. So like solo parenting and running a business, not that fucking hard. And so there was this story going in my head, like, stop being a pussy. Stop being a little bitch. You wanted kids. You wanted a family. You wanted a business. You've got it now. So don't fucking complain about it. That was this story I was telling myself in my head. And what I realized now after I suppose, getting therapy and getting mental health support is that asking people for help or support, often they're really happy to help to start with. But also, you know, if I had a deadline and it was tomorrow and I hadn't done the thing, I'd just stay up until midnight until it was done because I said I was going to have it to them tomorrow. And now I'm like, I won't have it to you tomorrow. I'm sorry, but I can have it to you next week. And the answer pretty much always has been no worries, like too easy. So I've realized, fuck, how much harder have I made my life for myself by being so binary, right? By being so driven, by being such a stickler for the unwritten rules.
But I think it's possibly twofold in you, because you're obviously, as you said, a very driven person, very disciplined. But do you think you also took on, post your continuing recovery, your continuing treatments, do you think you also took on, I need to show that I'm capable of doing all these things that I would have been able to do before?
Yeah, of course. And it was, I suppose I wanted to prove that to everyone else. Like, hey, I know I've got a disability, but I can still do everything. And, you know, when Michael's around, I can kind of pretend I don't because I can be cocky. I can say, hey, Dad, can you open up this jar of pasta sauce? He'll come and do it. But when he's not there, I'm like, fuck, I can't open this, you know, and that's not good for my ego either.
No, to come face to face with those limitations that once again pivot you back to a point of trauma.
Yeah, I suppose I don't find like not being able to do things I don't find it traumatic, but I do find it frustrating. It does frustrate me when I can't do things that I used to be able to do.
When you started on on this questioning really of how you could return yourself to yourself and start to enjoy this life that you had built and that you had dreamt of, but that you weren't enjoying, do you think at that point you knew inside yourself that you were getting wobbly?
Yeah, I think, of course, I think I definitely did. I think that's part of the reason why I set out on this project to be selfish, because I could sense something, I suppose, like brewing on the horizon. I know that sounds quite dramatic, but I could sense something nebulous about to happen. And I think that's why, you know, part of the reason I went to get a mental health care plan was because I was rereading some of the stuff that I'd written.
Right.
And I always get complimented on like how energetic and vivacious and fun I am. And the stuff I'd written was actually really fucking dark.
Right.
And, you know, I've got so many good girlfriends that I love and I adore, and I called one of them and I kind of told her what had been going on. And she was the one who encouraged me to go get a mental health care plan.
When you spoke to her, what were the headlines at that point?
Oh, the headlines were like, I just told her some of the stuff I'd written, like that I felt like I was in the way, that I felt like I was an inconvenience, that I felt like I wasn't enough. Just stuff like that, which hadn't been reflective of my everyday experience up until that point.
And why do you think, I mean, there might not be an answer to this, but why do you think that it built to that crescendo?
I'm not sure. Maybe because, you know, because I told myself that I'd beaten the fire, so like normal life shouldn't be hard. Because I told myself that I didn't need help from anyone and I could do everything by myself. because I didn't have very good boundaries with strangers, but also people that I work with or people in my work life. I think maybe those are some of the reasons.
Because I find it so curious about you, a real tell about you.
Oh, gosh, do I have a tell?
Well, I just think because psychologically, I think what you achieve is extraordinary anyway, even for someone who hasn't experienced what you've experienced. Like you've moved a family 3 times, you've lived on your own, you do marathons, you've got a running club, you've got, you do everything. And yet you say post the fire, none of these things should be hard. But of course, these things are also harder for you because it's post the fire, but you don't allow yourself that little bit of grace at all, or you didn't.
No, and I think that's what I learned about burnout too, right? Because I felt pathetic having burnout because whilst I did work hard, I wasn't like a surgeon working 80 hours a week, right? But what I learned about burnout is it's more common amongst women who have really high standards, more common amongst women who are caring for others, so like kids or their older parents or, even sometimes doing both at the same time. It's more common amongst women who are marginalised or who are women of colour or live with a disability. So when I learned all of that stuff, I suppose cogs started to turn in my mind, and no matter how long I'd been screaming, no, it shouldn't be hard, it shouldn't be hard, it shouldn't be hard, it actually was fucking hard. It actually was really hard. Even though, if I'm being honest, you go on social media, you see everyone else's highlights reel, everything else they're doing and achieving with 8 kids. I'm thinking of Ballerina Farm.
Yeah, the trad wives.
Just thinking like, how are they doing it? They're homeschooling 8 kids.
They're doing ballet.
They're doing ballet. They've got a body of a supermodel. They're just they're out there milking the cows. And even though I'm on social media, I know it's not.
Yes.
I know it's not reflect. I know it's not real. I suppose it does influence our perceptions.
Well, also, when people would look at your highlight reels, they would think that of you.
Yeah, but I try not to do that because I've been the person looking at social media feeling shit about my own life. So I try to be, I hate this word, but I try to be authentic. I try to be myself. I try to let people know that it's okay to ask for help, that it's okay if you're struggling, that it's okay if you're not coping. But this is the weird thing. I gave all of this really great advice, if you're struggling, tell someone. I didn't take it. I didn't take it myself.
But it's so often the case.
Yeah, it is. Now that I've been through it, I don't want it to happen again. But I suppose now, after I was burned, it was pretty fucking obvious why I would need mental health support. But I suppose last year the reasons, to me at least, were less obvious. After what I've learned, I understand myself a little bit more. After writing the book, I understand myself a little bit more. But I also think that there were some warning signs leading up to that, right? So feeling like you've got no time in the day and you get up at night and you try and work, but you can't do anything because your brain hasn't rested, it hasn't switched off. That could have been a warning sign to me that something wasn't quite right. And so going through that experience, I feel like if I get to that point again, I'll say, okay, I think I know what I need. I need some support, or I need to ask. I need to get my kids into after school care 2 days a week just so I can get a bit of breathing space. Or I need to tell Michael how I'm feeling and so that he's going to take more of the load on at home. Or I'm just going to fucking take a sick day at work and I'm not going to do anything. So I think I've got all of those strategies now.
When you talk about Michael, who is himself a remarkable person, I would expect you to have a remarkable partner. How aware or unaware was he of what was going on with you when you were floundering?
He'd started a new job and he was working away at big chunks of time and I didn't want him to be like distracted or to have to worry about me because he'd started something new, and I suppose there's a bit of guilt there too because whilst my life has changed, his life has also changed too. And I was so happy for him and I was so proud of him, and so I suppose I didn't want him to come back after 2 weeks of work and then be like, so I wanted to, I want to tell you what's been happening with me. So I don't think he was aware.
Was there a part of you as well that when he came back, you didn't want to be the person that wasn't the capable person you'd always prided yourself on being?
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to pretend that we'd been good. The boys had been happy. Like the house had been running smoothly. Work was going good. I suppose I wanted to present that to him so that he wasn't worried about what was happening at home, so he could concentrate on his job. Again, in retrospect, that was a fucking stupid idea. like, you know what I mean? Like, because the more you let people in, the more you give them context, the more they understand.
Yes.
And I could have said to Michael, hey, when you go away, I really struggle, and I don't want to struggle. And maybe we could have come up with some ideas at the time to help us navigate that. But instead I just closed everything off and I didn't tell him because I thought I was doing the right thing because I didn't want to worry him. But I wasn't thinking about what I needed, I expected myself to just be able to solve it, just be able to deal with it, just be able to roll with it, just be able to navigate it, do it all myself, not tell anyone. And even if I didn't have any idea of how to cope, well, fuck it. I had to. That was my mentality. And it didn't turn out well.
No.
It didn't turn out well.
That never does. That never does. And if you were...
I think I was so arrogant because I was like, you know what? I know everyone around me would say this is a bad idea, but I'm really confident that me, Turia Pitt, I can pull this off.
What was the moment when you confessed to him?
I didn't actually confess to him. I told him when I got a mental health care plan.
Ah.
Yeah, I told him that. And he's always been so supportive. So he was like, yeah, darling, if that's what you need to do, that's a great idea. He's like the loveliest, kindest man. So he was so supportive. And it's since that, and I suppose since I've come out of that fog, I've been able to share with him more and more about what last year was like for me.
And has he been surprised by that?
Michael's very unfazed by like most stuff that happens. So he hasn't been like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. He's just been like, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, he's very, very, very unfazed and unflappable. But it's interesting because, when I was writing this book and particularly with the mental load chapter, I sent out a survey and I think it was like 1,000 people responded to me. And I got an insight into how other people manage this stuff in their home lives. And while some of the women had tried to communicate with their partners, a lot of them actually didn't, so maybe
they kept it to themselves.
Yeah, because again, you want to keep the family together. You want to make sure everyone else is okay. You just think, I'll fucking sort it out myself at another point. later down the track.
Also, it's been it's a modern trap that I think we're more conscious of now, even if we don't necessarily act upon it.
Oh my gosh. In the 90s, I was raised by a mum. We moved here from Tahiti. I was raised by a mum. I've got 3 brothers. She worked full time. She cooked dinner. The household ran smoothly, and every night she'd write. So that was my role model growing up. And she never complained, never whinged. She was stressed. She was stressed a lot of the time, but she just did it all. And I think Michael's mum was the same too.
Same with my mother-in-law. Yes.
Yeah, that's just what women did. And again, that's part of the reason why I felt like a little bitch, because I was like, all of these other women around you, all of these older women that you look up to and respect, they've all done this. They've been through it. But again, what was great about writing was that when I was sharing it with my mum, she said, she was like, I was so unhappy. She was like, I couldn't let you kids know, but I was so unhappy.
You never knew.
No, and a small child living at home, it's not their job to make sure that your needs are met.
And she actually says that to you. In fact, that whole part in your book where you go to Tahiti and you take your boys and your brothers are there and that is a remarkable journey, but also you came back with such revelations there, including about your mum's life.
Yeah, because mum moved back to Tahiti to look after her mum, and she lived on a little atoll over there on our ancestral land, and she would tell me these stories on the phone, and it all sounded so idyllic. Like a nephew dropping her around fish. She's going to her cousin's house to teach the kids English. It was this real network of kinship, everyone helping each other. And that's not what life feels like for the most part in our modern Western world. You have a village, but, it's after school care or it's something that you're paying for. And I realized that what I'd done up until that point is I tried to be selfless, put everyone's needs before my own. But because everyone else was so busy and so involved with their life, they didn't have the capacity to check back in with me to make sure that my needs were being met too. So it was good. Mum style works if you live in a traditional village. But with the way our Western world is set up for now, I'm not saying it couldn't be better. I don't think it works, or at least it hasn't worked for me, because when I've given and given and given, I've just ended up with the dregs at the bottom of the cup.
And then she talked to you, which is such it's a great concept for everybody, and it's a Tahitian concept, or she uses the Tahitian term, your mana. Is it yours?
Yeah, mana. Yeah, mana. Yeah. So mana is like a Polynesian concept, and it's like your inner force or your spiritual power, right? Maybe you could even think of it as like your inner child, or when people say you've got to protect your peace.
Yes.
Have you ever heard that?
Yes.
It may be a little bit similar. And so what I realized after talking with Mum, because I talked with Mum the whole way through this book, she gave me such insight for each different stage that I was at. But she said that I needed to restore my mana, because I'd just been giving it away, not having boundaries, doing this, doing that, not checking in with my own needs. And that's part of the reason why I was so depleted. She used Tahitian words. For the life of me, I can't fucking remember.
Yeah, right.
what they. If I could remember, it would be a lot cooler, but I can't. Yeah.
But she recognised in you how depleted you were.
Yes, yeah, because I told her everything that had been going on. So she said, you need to restore your mana.
And how do you do that?
So she said your mana can be restored. It's basically like self-care, right? So going for a walk with a friend. She said like swimming in a river, And I was like, I don't know if she knows what Australia's like. There's not heaps of not heaps of rivers here. But also she said your manner can be violated when there is an assault on your dignity. And that sounded really hardcore. But with the boundaries thing, that did feel like a circumstance where my sense of dignity was being violated.
That's amazing. When she said that to you, did you put those pieces together straight away, or it took a little while to recognise?
No, because I would speak to my mum. She would just download all of this Polynesian knowledge and information onto me. And then I would say, okay, I got to go, Mum. Right. And hang up. And then I would think about it. After and then write down some of it. So I didn't recognise it straight away at all. It was probably a couple of days after that. But I liked how seriously she took the idea, right? And the words she used, like an assault on your dignity, your manner was being violated. They're quite strong words. And even with this idea of self-care, I had always assumed it was like bubble baths and like a 12-step skincare regime and this and that. But self-care is actually an idea that was popularised by the Black Panthers in America in the 1970s. And they realised that if they were going to advocate for racial equality, that they needed to take care of themselves. And they looked at it as self-preservation. So I think almost politicising these concepts for me has made me take it more seriously. So if I go to the gym, I'm not just fucking going to the gym. I'm looking after myself. That's what I need to do to preserve my sense of self. That's what I need to do to make sure that I'm okay in this crazy modern world that we navigate.
When you are engaging in this concept of self-care, that I think a lot of people, a lot of women, let's say women, might not tend to do because of being scared of being selfish. Did you address it with Michael and say, this is what I'm going to start to do, or did you just do it? And was it even noticed?
I just did it. I just did it, and it wasn't noticed.
No.
Now, and this is the thing. I'd been waiting for someone to tap me on the shoulder and be like, hey, Turia, go for a run, go out to lunch with your friends. Michael had never stopped me from doing any of those activities before. I just felt like I wasn't entitled to it. And I know it's not just me. There's been so much literature done about how women, and this is broad brushstrokes, Kate, so definitely not saying this is the case for every woman out there. But for most women, we don't feel entitled to take leisure for ourselves. And part of that is the idea that women are valorized for how selfless they are.
Yes. Look at Mother's Day.
They are.
Mother's Day. It's always a celebration of your cook, your cleaner,
How much you do for everyone else.
And also, by the way, can I just say, I think there's a certain nobility in that, and there's a beauty in what a lot of women have, which is a nurturing capacity. I don't disrespect that at all. But when it comes to the point where it's actually depleting you and meaning that you're not enjoying your own life because love is the most effective way of enslaving anybody and you're living like a slave, then it's a problem.
Yeah, I consider myself to be a nurturing, caring, beautiful, loving, compassionate woman, but we have this idea, women are placed on this pedestal for how much they do for everyone else, So that's part of the reason why we don't feel like it's okay for us to go to the gym or to catch up with a girlfriend for a coffee or to go to Pilates. Even how we talk about women's fitness, you know, Pilates, for example, which is, if anyone does Pilates, they know it's really fucking hard. But it's almost, we almost talk about it in a condescending way, you know, or even with surfing, it gets called, I don't know if you've ever heard this, Kate, it gets called girfing.
Oh, when girls do it.
Like, yeah, when girls go for a surf. It's
no,
like,
I haven't heard that.
Like, it's like, oh, you're going for a girf. Like, how lucky are you? So again, we're not taking it seriously. We're trivializing it. We're saying, oh, well, guys are surfing, but women are down here because they're only girfing. And so, you know, this is not going to be everyone's experience at all, but that was the literature that I found when I was writing this book. I realised how, number one, how supportive Michael is, but we are in a happy relationship, because when women wrote back to my mental load survey, the answers that I read were heartbreaking, you know, because some other women were punished for broaching the subject of the mental load, or for daring to have the audacity to suggest that their partner chip in every now and again. So they were gaslit, there was physical abuse. So for those women, it actually wasn't safe for them to talk with their partner about how they were going to share the mental load.
And even putting those experiences to one side, for people that are in a traditional relationship and a happy one, there is a difference in my experience, and my husband's a most brilliant, you know, modern man who raised our kids when I was at work, you know, doing breakfast radio for 12 years or whatever. So he can run a household. He doesn't have weaponized incompetence, except when it comes to washing. But in my experience, and I found myself in a very similar situation to you, particularly when our kids were little and I was working and I had 4 kids under 6. And I said to Peter at the time, I said to Peter at the time, I remember this, I feel like I'm working so that everyone else can have a beautiful life except me. And then it caused me to, he was so shocked by that, right? Because they don't necessarily see the same things as we discussed that we feel. Maybe we're good at hiding them, but also we expect men to be anticipatory of our needs the way our girlfriends are. Like a girlfriend will go, oh my goodness, you need to get away, you need to data, well, let's do a thing, let's do it. Yeah. In my experience, men don't necessarily operate or see things the same way.
No, and like, thank fuck they don't. Because, and like, you know, it's such, I recognise what a privileged position it is to be in, to have a happy relationship, and then to be like, oh, he doesn't operate in the way that I would like him to operate in. So I know that about Michael, even though I know that I probably do still sometimes get shitty when he doesn't read my mind and get the groceries that I wanted, even though I didn't ask him for the things that I wanted. So yeah, I probably still do get shitty at him.
But that's
for stuff like that.
The message of your book, which was initially for yourself and now you're sharing it with others, is that the onus is on you to protect yourself, to recognise what yourself needs, and hence the selfishness.
Yeah, and, you know, if I was in burnout last year and someone said the onus is on you, Turia, to protect yourself, I probably would have told that person to get fucked, you know, because you're so overwhelmed, you're so stressed, you're so burned out. And so if people are in burnout right now and they're listening to this and they're thinking, go fuck yourself, Turia, I understand. I understand.
They've got a long way. They've got a long way through the podcast to be now thinking, "Go fuck yourself, Turia."
But I understand, and there are some really great strategies out there that you can try to help alleviate that sense of burnout. But I would recommend the book on burnout by the Nagoski twins as a starting place. But ultimately, I think the book is about looking after your own well-being, protecting your peace, looking after your mana, making sure you're doing things to restore that though I suppose those levels of mana, but maybe also not having unrealistic expectations of yourself. You know, not expecting yourself to be able to work a full day, come home, cook a home-cooked meal, take the kids to all of their sport, read them a story at the end of the day. Maybe you can do that some days, and that's amazing, that's wonderful. But on the days where you feel so drained and so depleted, maybe you just say, hey, what's one thing I could do which is going to make this day feel a little bit easier?
Since you've been implementing these strategies, how has your day-to-day life changed?
Oh, it's like chalk and cheese compared to last year. But I do feel more boring. Right? Because I'm not no, this is the other side of the coin, because people ask me to do things. I'm like, you know what, that might push me over the edge. So I'm actually going to say no to that. So maybe I'm being extra cautious this year, and maybe that will change in a few years. But I feel well, I feel strong physically and mentally, which is amazing after so many years of feeling frazzled and stressed.
You feel happy?
Yeah, I feel. Don't know if I think. Don't know if
it's a fleeting concept, but
this has been an interview which has really tested my intellectual bounds. So thank you, Kate. So no, but I feel good. I feel good.
Because you've actually written a book about happiness, I was going to recommend it to you.
This is the fucking irony. When I went to get my mental health care plan, I sat in the GP's office and I saw my book on happiness right there. Bright yellow cover. I look really hot. My hair is blowing in the wind machine. And then I had to say, hey, I know I wrote that book on happiness, but I'm actually here for a mental health care plan.
Well, if we know one thing about life, we know that it humbles us all.
And haven't I been fucking humbled? I thought I was a bit of a big dog, surviving the fire, doing Ironman World Championships, traveling around the world, giving motivational speeches, having a run club, writing these books. And then last year it all just came undone. So I have been, I've actually been really humbled by life. I didn't think of it like that. But that's a good way to think of it. Yeah, very humbled.
You know, the other thing I think about Michael, I remember years ago, 2011, when you were caught in the fire, and sometime after that, you know, the whole world was kind of watching you from a distance, obviously. Is she going to survive? Is she? And then through your various, operations and rehabilitations and your stepping into public life, in and out of it. But Michael said the most amazing thing. He said, people talk about going to hell and back, but Turia went to hell and hell spat her out.
Is he a poet?
Oh, it's just the most – I'm like, is this guy a copper? Is he a copper, a helicopter pilot or what? Yes, he's a poet, but also has such a profound, deep and abiding love and respect for you and the essence of who you are that is shared by many of us, really.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have been able to write any of the books I have because – writing is such a vulnerable experience. You're putting your darkest thoughts, your deepest fears, you're putting it out all there on a page. Then you're publishing it, then you're going on podcast interviews to talk about all of that dark shit that you put in a book. And if Michael was a different man, maybe he would say, I don't want you to put out put that out there on the public record. Or I don't want you to tell that hot chocolate story. Or I don't want you to say this, or I don't want you to say.
Don't say I was sitting on the couch.
Don't say I was sitting on the couch. Say I was doing the dishes. Don't say that. No. So like you wouldn't be able to, I wouldn't be able to do that if he wasn't the person that he was.
Why don't you marry him then?
I know, we need to. Mate, we've had 2 kids. We've gone through fucking COVID. We've moved 3 times. I've written 7 books.
I don't want to add to your mental load, but I tell you what.
You're adding to it. Yeah, I know. We. You know what? The kids are asking us to. They're like, why aren't you guys married? Yeah.
And what do you say?
The kids are. Oh, I'm just like, yeah, it's on the fucking list. along with
buying the right hot chocolate.
Yeah, we do want to get married. And I think because now I'm going to be, like, I'm 38 this year. So I think I'll probably have my boys walk me down the aisle. Sorry, Dad. Because I feel like it's Dad's walking down the aisle when you're a bit of a younger bride. But I feel like, I don't know, I want my kids to walk me down the aisle.
Dad can have the first dance.
Yeah, he can have the first dance, yeah.
Turia Pitt, what a gift you are to the nation and the world. You really are. Your manner is strong. You got strong manner.
You can use that now, Kate.
I love it. I love that concept because sometimes you're not sure what – there's not always time to work out exactly what everything is, but you always know when something's a little bit off.
You do know. Yeah, you do know. And I've learned to stop expecting myself to just absorb all of that stress and that anxiety and stop expecting myself to somehow figure it out by myself internally without sharing it with anyone else.
I'm just a final question. When you talk about how people through curiosity or rudeness or whatever, misguided interest, breach your personal boundaries when they ask about your appearance or what happened to you. What would you like people to do or say?
Oh, so I teach my kids that it's not polite to comment on people's bodies. Like, so if there is someone who is, for whatever reason, you feel like maybe they look different, maybe they have a disability, maybe they're really, really tall, whatever it is, I think what I teach my kid is just don't comment on people's bodies because maybe they'll be fine with it. And be happy to answer questions, but maybe also not. And it's probably just best to just not comment on it.
Well, Turia Pitt, I will comment on what a remarkable writer you are.
Hey, and I really appreciate you reading the book too.
Oh, I really cannot recommend this book highly enough because it's a very strange. When I read the book, I'm like, what does she want? What does she want? What does she want? And then I realised it's what else
does this woman want?
Well, yes, but what is the quest?
Yeah.
And what is the quest, Turia Pitt?
The quest for me is to keep being a bit selfish, even though it's hard at times, making sure I make that time to do things for myself. And if Michael's away at work or for whatever reason, I can't make time to do those acts of self-care, maybe there's still things I can do, even though it feels good at the time. Maybe I don't drink the alcohol, even though it feels good at the time. Well, maybe I just put my phone down because that's going to make me feel a bit more frazzled, right, and a little bit more on edge. Maybe I think about, I know I said I was going to do all of these things today, but I've woken up, I feel really tired. What can I cancel? What can I move? What can I push out until next week?
Turia Pitt, I look forward to everything that you do.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Even if it's just you sitting on the couch. May you enjoy it.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.